Hey everyone! Do you also want to know how you can create your own sensor for your humidity, temperature and pressure and create your own weather station or your sensor for your bathroom to automatically switch on your ceiling fan or whatever? Then watch this video. So first we're going to build our hardware, and this is what you need for it. The main processor is our wemas D1 mini processor. Then we need a BME 280 temperature, pressure and humidity sensor, a breadboard for testing, and a couple of male-to-male cables for male-to-male cables. So let's start. It's quite simple. I think the total setup of this was, well, if you know, you need the breadboard anyway, and you need these cables anyway if you're working with it. So if I leave them at the side, I think in total you will pay probably maybe less than 4 or 5 euros for these two components, and you can find them all over the internet. So we're going to push this D1 mini into the breadboard. Okay, let's see. What's the most handy way? Yes, that's in there. And we do the same for the BME 280. So they're both pushed in now, and now we are going to connect the cables. We start with the ground cable. I'll take green for that. And the ground cable on the D1 mini is the second connector. So we connect it there. And on the BME it's also the second connector. Let's put it in there. Then we go for the power cable. Let's say that's the white cable. That's in the D1 mini. It's a 3-volt power cable. So this is 3 volt and the other one is 5 volts. So I'm putting the first one in the 3 volts. And on the BME, I'm also putting it in VCC, which is also the first one. Okay. So power and ground are connected, and now for the data we choose a black cable. In the D1 mini it's going to D1, and D1 is the 6th connector. See, yeah, that's D1. And on the BME it's going to SCL, which is the 3rd, and then we have one left, so that's the blue cable. We are putting it in D2, which is the 5th on our D1 mini, and it's going to SDA, which is the 4th on the BME. Let's see. Why is this not working? I cannot find it. Ah, there it is. So basically this is everything that we have to do. It's now connected, and the next step is to upload firmware to it and make sure that it works in Home Assistant. So let's hop over to Home Assistant. So now that we created our wemas board and the hardware is ready, now we go to Home Assistant, and we are going to set up our wemas board so that it works in Home Assistant and we can read the temperature, humidity and pressure there. So there's a couple of things that we need to do. The first thing that we need to do is that we have to install an add-on that will help us in reading our wemas board. So we go to supervisor, and then we go to the add-on store, and in the add-on store we're going to search for ESPHome. Here it is, ESPHome, and click on it, and we're going to install ESPHome. This will take a while, so I probably will fast forward this. So when it's all started up, I should see an interface. Let's click on this. And here's the interface, and it shows me that I have nothing set up at this moment. So we're going to set up our first node for our temperature, humidity and pressure sensor. So let's do that. Set up the first node. Asking me for a name. I have to do it lowercase, so let's call it temperature. Let's call it humidity. Okay, now I have to choose a device type. I use the wemas D1 Mini. So let's take this one. Continue. And what we want is that if you change the firmware for the sensor, that you can update it over the air, so that you don't have to connect it to my PC with a USB cable. So for that I have to enter my Wi-Fi SSID and my password. So and I can also enter an access password if I want to do an upload over the air, but I'm not going to do this. It's not really needed for me. And now it's saying that it's ready. So I'm going to submit this. And I can select an upload board. Well, that's over the air for now. And at this moment it tells me there's an unknown status. So if I want to edit this, I get an error for not found. And the only way to fix that is to reboot Home Assistant. So let's do that. We go to configuration, and then we go to server controls, and I always click on check configuration, even if I didn't change anything, but just to see if the configuration is okay. And then we click restart, and we get ourselves more coffee. Okay, here we go. Almost finished. Yes. So we go back to ESPHome, and now we see that it's offline, and I'm going to edit the file first to add some extra information, because what now basically is added to the configuration of the firmware is only information for the D1 Mini. And I also have to add information for the sensor, the temperature sensor that we installed. And that information that can be found on the ESPHome website. So for that we go to the ESPHome website. If you scroll down, you find all the components and sensor components that are available. So the one that we have is the BME280, and if I open this, I can copy this code and I can paste it just below here. I can change the names, so I can change BME280 temperature to temperature or to my temperature or whatever, but I'll leave it like this. And I can change the update interval, and that's the interval that Home Assistant will pull, or that the sensor will send an update of the humidity, the pressure and the temperature to Home Assistant. Well, let's put this to 10 seconds for now. Well, 10 is a lot, but okay. And there's another thing. If you go back to the site of ESPHome and you read this carefully, you see that it needs the I2C settings. So I click on this, and for I2C we have the same example configuration. Let's just pick this, copy it, and I'm going to put it just above here. And what's not needed is these two, so SDAA, SD22, and let's see what I'm missing more. Yes, if we go back to ESPHome, because I think there's something not really correct. Yes. I have to change some things because when you are here, this sensor configuration entry is not yet pointing to this. So for that we just copy this information, copy, and I'm going to paste it. Doesn't really matter where I paste it. Well, this is not very nice. Okay, and the address is 0x76, so I can remove this line here. So the other thing that I have to change here is that bus, it shouldn't be bus B but bus A, because bus A is declared here. So now I'm going to save this. I'm closing it, and now I'm going to compile this configuration file so it will create a firmware for my wemas board. So I click on compile. Okay. Yes, and my firmware is created. So now I can download the binary. So let's download it. And now I have a binary file that is downloaded, and my firmware on my hard drive in the downloads folder. And the next step is to upload the firmware to my wemas board. And to do that, we need to connect the wemas board with a USB cable to our PC or our notebook, and we need a piece of software which is called ESPHome Flasher that can be downloaded on GitHub, github.com/ESPHome/ESPHome-Flasher, and the link is also in the description. And if we go down here, I'm going to install it, uses pip, but there are different ways to install it, but this is the most easy way. I'm going to copy this code. And now I'm going to my terminal. I'm going to paste the code here, pressing enter. This shouldn't take too long. Yes, and it's installed, and now we can start it with ESPHome. Type in ESPHome Flasher. And then it starts up, oh, it's on my other screen, but here it is. Then it starts up the ESPHome Flasher software. It automatically selects the ports where your wemas D1 Mini is connected to. And now you can browse for the firmware, which is in the downloads folder. And then I click Flash ESP. Now let's see what's going to happen. And let's see if we already get feedback. And we get feedback. As you can see, I get feedback already. Every 10 seconds it will. Let's just wait a bit. So booting. And yeah, you can see that the temperature is 24.1 degrees and the pressure is 1014 hectopascal and humidity is 36%, and it's updating, so it is working. That's really nice. And now I'm going to take you back to Home Assistant and to see if we can get these values into Home Assistant. So I can close this now. I go back to my Home Assistant, and to get this working, I now have to install the integration of ESPHome. So I'll go to Configuration, Integrations, and it's already been discovered automatically. So let's click on Configure and say, do you want to add the ESPHome mode temperature, pressure, humidity to Home Assistant? Yes, we want to. I can choose an area where it's in. In my case, I have it in the bathroom to measure the humidity, and based on a certain percentage, the ceiling fan automatically is turned on or off, but I'll leave it to empty for now. And now it is configured, and you see I have one device and 3 entities. So if I click on the 3 entities, I see the humidity, pressure and temperature. And if I click on temperature, for example, and then click on this, I see that the temperature is 24.1 degrees, and that we also have a graph here. So this seems to work, but now we want to show it in one of our dashboards so that it looks much more nice. If you go to the default overview dashboard, you see that it's the entries are also here, or the entities are also here, temperature, pressure and humidity, but I want to have more control over how it looks. So let's create a new Lovelace dashboard. Going to Lovelace dashboards, and I'm going to create a new one. Let's call this one System, and show it sidebar. Yes, create. And now I have a new Lovelace dashboard system here, which automatically copies the same functionalities as the overview dashboard has. We're going to change that. I'll click on the 3 dots here, configure UI, and I'm going to start with an empty dashboard. And now it's totally empty. Let's create a new tab. Let's call it weather. Save. And we are going to add a card on here, and I think a glance card is a good thing to use. So BME 280 sensor as title for now. Let's choose temperature for the first one, and then pressure for the second one, and humidity for the third one. And if I close this, I have my values here, which is really nice. And if I click on them, I also see the graph for this one too. So that is working. And now I think we can make it more nice, because I would really like to have a fancy graph. And for that, we are going to install the mini graph chart. Mini graph chart. I'm not sure how it's exactly what the name is, but we will see it in a moment. To install that, you need HACS. And if you don't have HACS installed, it's on the left side here. If you don't have installed that already, I created a video of HACS before, and you can find it on my channel. So watch that video first, install HACS, come back to this video, then we can take the next step, which makes it really fancy. So if you installed HACS, we go to HACS, and we're going to install a front-end component. I'm clicking on the plus over here. I can close this one, I don't need it anymore. And I can search for mini graph card. Oh, it's already here, mini graph card. Click it, and there's not any information here, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going to show you in a minute how you can look that up. I'm going to install the repository in HACS. And one important thing to know is that HACS should automatically add the resource information in Home Assistant, but for some reason sometimes it doesn't work. So I advise you to copy this line. Let's copy this line here. Copy it, and now I click on install. Let's wait a bit. So it's installed now, and I'm going to check if that resource is added, and that can be done in configuration, Lovelace dashboard, and then resources. Click on resources, and as you can see it's not here yet, so I click on the plus. I'm going to copy this, paste this code. Okay, this is the line that we have to add. It's a JavaScript module. Click on create. Now it's there. Now we go back, and just to be sure, I'm going to reboot Home Assistant once more. Click on server controls, check configuration again. It's not really needed, but it's a good habit to do it every time. And I click on restart, so this will take a while. Empty. Okay. Yes, there we are. So now it's probably installed, so I go back to my system dashboard, and I'm going to add a new card here. Well, before I do that, I have to show you first what the settings are from the mini card. So I go back to HACS, and then I go to front end and mini graph card. I click on repository, and then the repository opens. And here's all the information about the Lovelace mini graph card. It looks really nice. There's a lot of things that you can do. There's information on how to install it. We just installed it, so you don't need it anymore. A lot of settings that you can set. There are some examples also here. So let's start with a simple example. Copying this example. Now I'm going back to Home Assistant, and I'm going to System again. I'm going to configure UI. I'm going to add a card, and I want the three graphs next to each other. So I'm going to add a horizontal stack card, and on the horizontal stack card I'm going to add a manual card. So it's a custom card, and then I'm going to paste the code that I just took from the mini graph card example, but this one is not, in the indentation is not right, so I'm going to, okay, now the indentation is right, but sensor.illumination is not a sensor that we have, but we have a sensor BME 280 underscore temperature. And yes, there it is. So our first graph card is here, which looks really nice. And now I'm going to add the other two. So I'm going to edit this one. Let's copy this. Let's copy this code. Click on plus. We go to manual again. Paste the code here. And let's call this one pressure. Under pressure. That's pressure one. And I'm going to copy the code one more time. I can also click on show code editor here, which gives me all the code of the whole card. So just to let you know that it's also possible to do it like this. So then maybe I can just copy this one, paste it here, and this one is called Humidity. And now I save it, and if I close this, it looks really nice already, don't you think? But it can be more nice. So we take one more step. If you go to the example of the mini graph card, you see that there's a lot of things that you can do here. And I'd like to create something like this, and also with an effect that the colors change based on the value. So I prepared a little thing for that. We go back to Home Assistant, Configure UI, and we're going to edit the values over here. Let's go to Show Code Editor, so I have everything here. Okay, and I'm going to paste all this. And what I basically pasted now, the code is that it's showing an animation, which means that if you load the page that this line is going to animate. I have color thresholds, so based on a certain threshold the color changes, and I'm going to give it a shorter name, and I want to have the fill of this graph that it fades. So if I save this now and I close this, I think I created a really nice interface for my own sensor, my own BME 280 sensor with my wemas D1 Mini, and that's really nice. I mean, I built this for €5, something like that. So yeah, you can do a lot more with this thing and with ESPHome. This is just a short example. You can also create this in a much smaller way, and if you have a 3D printer you can make a nice casing around it and put it in your bathroom or outside if you want to use it as a mini weather station. So I hope I explained something to you that you didn't really know already. It makes it virtually possible for you to create all kinds of sensors which are really cheap. You can control a lot of things in your house with it. So if you enjoyed it, if it helped you, give my video a thumbs up, like my channel, share the video, and I would really like to know in the comments if you managed to create it yourself. If you have questions, you can also ask them in the comments. I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. And if you have suggestions for the next video, please let me know too. Okay, thanks guys. Bye bye.